part of efforts in boosting cross-market partnerships that would deepen investments and trading opportunities for the continental and global markets, the Nigeria Stock Exchange and London Stock Exchange hosted their 5th dual listing conference in Lagos. It had as its theme attracting global capital to drive Nigeria's economic reforms and sustainable growth development, bringing together stakeholders in the capital market ecosystem. CEO of the Nigeria Stock Exchange, Mr. Oscar Onyema, in his opening remarks shared the essence of the forum.
Our collaboration with the London Stock Exchange, deliberate and strategic. It is geared at encouraging seamless cross-border access between our capital markets, ultimately drive deeper capital markets that enable capital formation for businesses and governments, create larger liquidity pools and greater competitiveness for investors, and enhance capacity and promote diversity of investment products, meet the needs of a wide range of investors and issuers. This is evidenced by the FGN sovereign foreign exchange denominated $1 billion Eurobond that is listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange and the London Stock Exchange, and a strong pipeline of corporate Eurobonds that will be dually listed. Creating and sustaining the growth trajectory of our exchanges, capital markets, financial markets, economies, and the continent as a whole requires a strong commitment from each and every one of us here today. It is not an easy journey, but it is one we have no choice back upon, individually and collectively, in order to guarantee our competitive advantage in today's interconnected world. We must use this opportunity to partner with each other, enable us to further unlock our growth potential, and advance the development of our financial and capital markets.
Mr. Mane Goku, representing the CEO of the London Stock Exchange, described the partnership between both exchanges as an opportunity to enhance capacity and promote diversity in the markets.
The relationship between Nigeria and the United Kingdom is a strong one and a historic one. And it is set to become even stronger in the coming years. Bilateral trade, currently at about £3.8 billion per annum, is forecast to reach £7 billion by 2030. And as Africa's biggest economy, Nigeria offers many, many opportunities for investment, expansion, and partnership. At London Stock Exchange, we enjoy a deep relationship with Oscar and his team at the NSE, and we have a partnership forged to foster dual listings across our two markets, within equities, debt, and funds. On the topic of dual listings, structurally this can happen in several ways. It can happen at the time of IPO. For example, Seplat, which executed a very successful $540 million IPO in April 2014, or it can be as a step two, a company already listed on the NSE or on the LSE that decides to do a follow-on offering on the other market. At London Stock Exchange, we have welcomed and financed African companies over the last 80 years. Today, we have 108 corporates from Africa listed on the LSE with an aggregate market cap of just over $200 billion. Since 2008, i.e. in the last 10 years, we have been the destination that has assisted companies from Africa raise over $16 billion of equity capital. With the very supportive Brent crude oil, now at about $77 at present, and supportive political backdrop in Nigeria, there is currently a positive and constructive international investor enthusiasm for Nigeria and African stories more generally. You heard this in Oscar's opening address. Our pipeline, from a dual listing perspective, has probably never been stronger. On behalf of NSE and LSE, we look forward to engaging with you as you think through your capital markets offering. More investment into Nigeria means more jobs, more tax revenues, and more inclusive growth.
In her goodwill message, the Deputy British High Commissioner, Laura Buffield, lauded the Dual Listing Conference initiative.
More investment into Nigeria, facilitated by London's capital markets, mean more jobs, more tax revenues, and more inclusive growth. This is a central pillar of the UK's government partnership with Nigeria. And I should say that I've been in civil service working for the UK government for about 15 years now. And this is the first time that I see the convergence of two phenomenons. One, a renewed focus on Africa across the British government and across the three internationally minded departments, namely the Foreign Office, the Department for International Trade, and the Department for International Development. And three, a real convergence in understanding how we want to work with our partner countries in Africa in terms of developing long-term strategies for inclusive growth and investing in creating markets for the future, not just for short-term exports. So you will be seeing a lot more of that.
Director General of the National Office for Trade Negotiations, Ambassador Chiedu Sakwe, in his keynote, believed the cross-market engagement was a positive development for trade and investment in Nigeria, Africa, and at the global stage.
There is depth to this economy. The enthusiasm about it is not misplaced. And now we have to bring it together in a way that's coherent, in a way that's modernized, and in a way that's transformative. Which leads me to my second point, and that is the capital market. There are many sources of growth in an economy. The capital market is one. Part of this conference and this dual listing conference, it's not just celebratory, but it's to acknowledge a fundamental fact that unquestionably the central allocative efficiency of resources from capital markets simply is the best way of growing an economy, of generating resources and of generating investments. And so the second message from a trade negotiator, close on to 40 years of doing this, is that we should support what the Nigerian Stock Exchange is doing, support the dual partnership with the London Stock Exchange. It matters, and it matters hugely for the global economy, for the African economy, and for the Nigerian economy growing forward.
CEO of Nigerian Stock Exchange, representative of the CEO of the LSE, and Nigeria's Minister for Power, Works and Housing speak forward on the conference and the value to driving Nigeria's economic reforms.
And if you see what has happened in the country, every sector we have opened up to the private sector has really thrived, from your radio to your newspapers, to your television, to your telecom. So the infrastructure sector should not be different in the medium to long term. Understandably, we want to see them happen very quickly, but they have a long gestation period and a completion period before we begin to see the benefit. But the short-term results are already obvious from the work that is being generated on the construction side, from the demand and uptake on the mining side, from the demand and uptake on the manufacturing side, for tires to drive vehicles, for petroleum products to fund construction equipment, from increased production of bitumen and so on and so forth. So the first stages of those kind of investments are already bearing fruit. The final stages, of course, is when the infrastructure is completed and we can all enjoy it.
Some of the things the Nigerian investors can gain from our partnership with the London Stock Exchange to create opportunities for dual listings is a deeper marketplace that has more variety to it. As you know, under our partnership, we facilitate the listing of equities and bonds in international markets based on the London Stock Exchange, and those corporates that are looking to maintain their local character by continuing or starting to be listed on the stock exchange. A number of landmark transactions have already happened as a result of our partnership with the London Stock Exchange. On the equity side, the biggest one is Seplat, that did an IPO and raised about $500 million in both markets. On the fixed income side, the federal government has issued a number of Euro bonds, about $3 billion worth of Euro bonds that are dually listed between Lagos and London. And there's a number of variety in the type of bonds that are also being issued. So we have the diaspora bond, the $300 million diaspora bond. We have, coming back to the local scene, the partnership also allows us to build capacity. So we've had about 4 of these types of conferences already. This is the 5th one. We bring in the ecosystem and we talk about issues that will make it more attractive and create a lot more understanding for the domestic investors to participate in some of these instruments that we're rolling out.
Now, where do we go from here? 2014 was also the time, the back end of 2014 was also the time that oil price took quite a beating, and up until recently, we didn't have the right oil environment, and therefore we didn't have as many listings as we would have probably, expected. That being said, our pipeline between the NSE, LSE dual listing agenda is probably today at the strongest it's ever been. We are looking to welcome several companies in the dual listing framework over the course of this year and next year. And whereas in other countries, like my responsibilities across Africa, Middle East, India, whereas in other countries, often it's quite a sole listing dynamic. In Nigeria, particularly, the dual listing dynamic is very powerful and is the norm. So, we think that this partnership should work very well for both sides. What dual listing provides issuers in this part of the world is incremental demand, incremental investors, more liquidity, and more trading hours that their securities can be listed for.
A major takeaway from the Nigeria Stock Exchange LSE 5th Dual Listing Conference is the fact that it is mutually beneficial, but most importantly, providing the platform for Nigeria to attract global capital that will be vital to deepening its capital market and growing its economy.